We are keepers of the forest, watchers of the sea. We live alongside with nature in perfect harmony. We call upon each one of you for a little more understanding. Together we can win the battle, alone we have no chance. We must pull together, all red, white, black and yellow, all peoples and all nations, all around the world.
Gwilmuk Maugluswagan. It means we are seeking consensus. The Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative is our negotiations with the province of Nova Scotia and the Government of Canada. We are seeking consensus among the Mi'kmaq of Nova Scotia on the best ways to implement Aboriginal and treaty rights. In 2002, the government agreed to enter into a negotiation process with the Mi'kmaq over Aboriginal and treaty rights. The negotiation process will settle important concerns we all have about our rights to the land, its resources, and our eventual self-governance. These rights are of great importance, and the initiative is the means that we can use to gain recognition for all that is rightfully ours. Gwilmuk Maugluswagan. The Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative is led by a team of dedicated negotiators, researchers, and Mi'kmaq advisors. They work on behalf of the chiefs and councils from all 13 Mi'kmaq First Nations in Nova Scotia. The Mi'kmaq Rights Initiative has one clear goal: to define, recognize, and implement our rights for the benefit of all Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia. The team does not pursue anything without the consent of the Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs, who are committed to a consensus-building process through community consultations. Viola Robinson and Joe B. Marshall bring a combined total of over 60 years' experience in Mi'kmaq rights leadership to the table. They were appointed by the Assembly of Nova Scotia Chiefs to be the link between the community and the negotiating parties.
The leadership has decided that this is a Mi'kmaq people process. It's something, if we're going to talk about rights, it means all Mi'kmaq people. And they need to be involved, and they need to be informed, and they need to have a role in what happens, because it's their rights and it's their future that is being discussed at a negotiation table. That's really important because when we're at the table, and if I speak, I'm speaking from a Mi'kmaq perspective, truly from a Mi'kmaq perspective, because I have to be able to bring that perspective to that table so those people sitting on the other side of the room have a good understanding of where we're coming from.
I believe in this because it is an attempt at getting everyone in the communities involved in this, giving everybody an opportunity to have a say. We're trying to constantly show the chiefs, the leadership, and the communities too, that this is not one or two or three persons' idea. This is something that we want everybody to be a part of eventually.
Roger Lewis is the archaeological researcher for the initiative. His role is to help explain the significance of the Mi'kmaq presence through the use of traditional stories and archaeological evidence.
When I go back and I have my discussions with elders today, you can see elements of those old legends in some of their conversations and the way they approach stories, and the information that I'm getting from them validates the location of some of these pre-contact activity sites. So to me, those stories are interconnected with the physical site and validate the existence of those sites. I can't predict into the future, but I can look at the archaeological record and reconstruct part of the past. I can't duplicate it, but I can reconstruct to provide a meaningful interpretation. And one gets an appreciation, I think, of the complexity of some of those early populations. As a Mi'kmaq person, I think we're at a turning point, especially relating that to what I do. In all fairness to previous archaeologists, at one point archaeology did have its problems. It was Eurocentric, it was biased, and it had a tendency to be a little exotic. But now I think where we're taking control, we're starting to manage, we're starting to preserve, protect, and provide an interpretation of our cultural history, and I think that's important.
It is important for everyone to understand that our treaties are sacred and will be respected by government from now on.
What we're trying to get across to people as well right now is the idea that our treaties are sacred, and that, I guess, as the king in 1763 said when he made his royal proclamation, the treaties are sacred and they're inviolable. They're not to be violated by anyone.
Joe B. Marshall was part of a generation of Mi'kmaq who worked together to form the Union of Nova Scotia Indians in 1969. The Union, led by the Chiefs of Nova Scotia, as their board of directors, gave a mandate to the organization to begin research on Aboriginal and treaty rights, among other issues. In 1976, they presented the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Aboriginal Rights Position Paper to the Minister of Indian Affairs. 1 year later, the department responded negatively, stating that the Mi'kmaq had no Aboriginal rights because they were superseded by law. This fueled the Union to persist and find ways to fight for their rights.
One of the ways that we began to utilize was by taking cases to court about Aboriginal rights and about treaty rights. And we saw that as well as a way of validating the treaties that had been signed between the Mi'kmaq and the British in the 1700s. And we started winning some cases.
One of those victories, the Simon case, was a landmark one for the Mi'kmaq because it validated the 1752 treaty.
Like I said, I was looking at 2 years behind bars of convicted, But like I said, we won, and I guess we can still hunt and fish today. So,
in 1985, the Supreme Court of Canada was saying this is a valid treaty. It's one of the treaties being referred to in Section 88 of the Indian Act, which allows provincial laws to apply on the reserve, except if there's a treaty about the same topic. And here was a treaty talking about hunting, Mi'kmaq hunting, and the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that it took precedence over Nova Scotia hunting laws, the Nova Scotia Lands and Forest Act, and the hunting regulations under that act. So to us it was a very big victory.
Over the years, there has been many instances where our Aboriginal treaty rights were not respected or understood. Legal charges have been made against our people for doing what they believed they had a right to do. Our people have been left out and marginalized by a province and a country which did not respect the spirit and the intent of the original treaties. The late Grand Chief Gabriel Siliboy was one of those who lived and hunted according to the treaties, but was arrested and charged with illegal hunting out of season.
Back in 1929, when the late Grand Chief Gabriel Siliboy was found guilty for illegally hunting muskrat, Gabriel Siliboy was using the same defense as the case they were judging in 1985, which is the Treaty of 1752. But he was still found guilty back in 1929, And in the 1985 Simon case, the judges saw a need to mention that he should not have been found guilty. To me, that exonerates Gabriel Syliboy. He really wasn't guilty.
While the Simon case was a landmark decision, there were two other major events which helped set the stage for our present-day negotiations. The first was in 1982, when Canada repatriated its constitution, establishing once and for all in Section 35(1) that the treaties signed between the Mi'kmaq and the British were to be acknowledged and respected by the Canadian government, no matter what.
I want to thank Junior Marshall for the last 7 years of his life for donating to this case.
In 1999, the Marshall decision dealt with a different series of treaties, the treaties of 1760 and 1761. These treaties involved Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, and Passamaquoddy from across the Wabanaki territories, proving that we had rights to resources and to make a living from them. The UNSI and CMM worked together and funded this legal case.
The intent of the treaties for the Mi'kmaq signatories was to carry on a way of life, and the way of life that they understood at the time when they signed the treaties was Nidugalik. The right to provide for yourself and your family, no matter how you do that. And it's always been the belief in our communities and the practice that no matter what a person does to go out and provide for themselves or their family, we refer to that as Nidugalik. Whether it's hunting, fishing, any kind of gathering, getting a job somewhere, making money and bringing it home, or bringing goods home. It's always Nidugalik. You're providing for yourself. And that's the concept that describes the way of life of the Mi'kmaq, back then as it does now. So that's why we say that the spirit and intent of those treaties must still be honored today.
Now that we know we have our rights, and they will be respected, we have to decide how these rights will be applied to ourselves now and for 7 generations to come.
And we're being relied on quite heavily by the leadership and by the people that things will go right. And if they don't, then we have to go back and seek new direction, or at least keep people informed. This is a part of communication, and it's crucial in the development of this process as we go on, as we move forward.
Well, it's a consensus of ideas. Mogluswan is more or less we're speaking together, and that's what we're trying to achieve, so that we will speak together as a people and hopefully show that we're all going in the same direction, and we want to stay that way and try to define our goals in that way and try to plan some kind of a future for our people in that way as well.
Over time, an agreement will be worked out on how our rights will be implemented. Everyone's input is needed. Every person who is a member of the Mi'kmaq bands in Nova Scotia should be aware that this negotiation affects them. It is the job of the initiative team to negotiate on your behalf to settle the issues that you decide need to be settled. This is the opportunity to settle on who will be considered Mi'kmaq, for example, or how hunting and fishing rights will be exercised, or what will be our right to land, or other resources, or how should the Mi'kmaq be compensated for profits gained from our traditional areas from which we were excluded, or what will our share be in any number of development initiatives by private or public interests in Nova Scotia. It is important to know that at any time during the negotiation process, we, the Mi'kmaq, can pull out of the process of negotiation with Canada and Nova Scotia. But we must remember that it is in our best interest to remain at the negotiation table and try to work out our rights. We have to try and reach acceptable agreements and consensus. The alternative would involve extremely expensive and lengthy court proceedings every time there is a challenge. This is our chance to work out the details of our rights the way we see fit. The initiative is striving to find practical ways to ensure the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq can exercise their rights and have access to economic opportunities. Eventually, we need to create forms of self-governance and resource management that are beneficial and healthy for our communities. We need to develop positive solutions for our Aboriginal title to land. And, of course, we need to evolve our relationship with non-Aboriginal people and their governments based on mutual respect and open communication. All of these things, it is hoped, will eventually result from the negotiation process. It will not happen overnight. It will take years.
It took us about 35 years to get there, but that's all right. You talk with our people in the communities about that 35-year time span, and they'll tell you that's okay. It took 250 years for them to recognize our treaties that were signed in 1700. So 35 years is just a flash.
Your input is required now in order to guide your chiefs and the negotiation team to work out the details of the type of future you would like to see for the Mi'kmaq.
Indian uprising is sweeping the land. We're taking back our dignity, we're taking back our pride. We will be one nation with our heads held up so high. It's an